What's up everybody, this video is my movie review of Wolfman. There's not going to be a spoiler warning at the start because it's been out for a few months. So let's get into it. Wolfman. Okay, so this is the remake of the Universal classic monster, Wolfman. That movie, and it is released by Universal. I heard that they were doing Wolfman. I was like, okay, this is going to be cool. I thought, I'm looking forward to it. I'm liking this. Then they sort of, when they were looking at first looks, I was like, oh god, that doesn't look great. But I was like, it's fine. I'm gonna wait. And after especially hearing how Universal, they were working with Blumhouse for this movie as well, I was like, okay, that's fine. I like Blumhouse from what they've done. You know, I really think Blumhouse are I think they're a good sort of movie production sort of company, and I've seen what they've done before, both with sort of whether they sort of come into the cinema or whether I've watched them when they were on Netflix, and they have made some really good sort of good films in terms of hits and films that I've liked. You know, they gave us obviously Five Nights at Freddy's, which I really enjoyed. They've given us Megan, which is getting a sequel, and Five Nights at Freddy's has also got, you know, getting a sequel. So they've clearly done well enough to warrant to do sequels for those movies, especially with the likes of The Black Phone. Again, another movie which was supposed to do really well, and that's getting a sequel. They have had other films which weren't as good, but then they have been really impressive with their films. Like they've done, like I think the Insidious films, I believe they're probably more of the most, they're sort of that franchise's sort of some of the more iconic films that they've done, to be honest with you. But it, at the end of the day, I don't really look to see if it's really well-known movie. When I see a movie sort of with a horror film and a company, I look to see, I want a good film, which is a good horror film. That is all I care about, you know. And Wolfman, I was excited for it when I first heard it, even more excited when sort of realised that Universal were doing it with Blumhouse. I was like, okay, great. And it was really terrible, I'm going to be honest. I thought it was terrible, which was a shame because I've seen Blumhouse films and they are amazing. And so I thought, it's Universal, it's Blumhouse, Universal Classic Monster with Blumhouse. I thought it was going to be good. Plus, they weren't having a massive star-studded cast. So I was like, okay, so they're not going to be blowing the budget on big, well-known characters, sort of big actors. Fine. Then I saw Nosferatu, which was obviously another movie that Universal were doing, not with Blumhouse, but another horror movie. And although that was the first horror film I saw in 25, it did release back in December of 2024, towards the end of it. But this was their Universal's first horror movie, and I think the first horror movie from anywhere of 2025. Wolfman. And after seeing Nosferatu, I was like, okay, yeah, really excited for Wolfman. Universal has shown what they can do with Nosferatu. This could be a great film, Wolfman. And I saw Wolfman, and I thought, by the end of it, I thought, oh, this is what I watched. I was really looking forward to it. I had really high hopes, and it was just crap. I don't mean that in a horrible way, because you know, the actors and actresses within it, you know, of course they put a lot of effort into it, and even the writers and the directors, they put a lot of effort into making the film. But I just thought it was really terrible, and which was a big downfall for me, especially bearing in mind that we've had, like, Blumhouse were involved with it, and they've given us really good movies and successful movies like Five Nights at Freddy's and The Black Phone and the Insidious franchise. And Megan, that's getting a sequel this year. So it's like, I was really looking forward to it, and it was really mad. I mean, it wasn't the goriest of films, horror doesn't always have to be gory, but there is a lot of gore you need in horror. There wasn't a lot of gore. There wasn't a lot of horror aspect to it. It felt, to me, it just felt like a sort of a horror film for sort of a young, more sort of 13-year olds to watch. It wasn't a movie which I enjoyed as much as I thought. In fact, I came out and I was like, that was different. Like, it was horrifying because of how bad it was. Like, it wasn't bad in terms of really gory, really horrifying. I just thought it was bad because it was like, it was a bad movie, in my opinion. And I think, really, it's sort of raised a concern with me for Universal with their movies, because I definitely think they're trying to remake the classic Universal monsters again. Sort of connect it, because they've tried that before, that didn't work. I feel they're trying to get this, they want to try it again, because we've had The Invisible Woman get a remake, and now we've had Wolfman, and I believe we're getting I think we're getting a Frankenstein movie, which is going to be Universal. I believe it is a take on their Universal horror, sort of a remake of that. And I really hope, especially something like Frankenstein related film, such an iconic character, I feel needs to be done better than Wolfman. Don't get me wrong, the guy who played him, he was great, but I just thought it's such a big movie in terms of like sort of the impact it had on sort of cinema back when it originally released, and they've remade it. I thought it's good. They can't mess it up. Of course, it was going to be different than the original. I never doubted that for a second. I haven't seen the original, to be honest, but I was really surprised on how bad it was. I thought it was going to be a lot better than it was, but for that reason, I've had to sort of obviously think of that, and really, I'm only giving it a bad movie, sort of a worse review, to be honest, than I thought I was going to. I didn't go in thinking it's going to be 10 out of 10, I never do, but I thought it was going to be a good movie, and it really wasn't. I thought, I came out of it, I was like, great. Some people have to pay, like, say, around 10 quid to see it. Luckily, I was able to see it for free with Odeon Limitless, but I was like, not everyone can do that. Quite a lot of people will have to pay around 10 quid for that. I was like, great. I've seen other movies which I thought weren't going to be as good, and they were better in my opinion. I've seen recent films, sort of like, not necessarily horror films, but like films which have been more entertaining for me than this film, and I was like, even sort of after that, seeing like another film which I enjoyed, realising I obviously enjoyed that a lot more than this, I was like, oh, right. But I just, I don't really have a lot to say about it in terms of how good it was. But it's also at the same time, in terms of being how bad it was, it wasn't because of bad acting. The acting was good. I just felt the story itself just fell flat. The practical effects were good, but I feel they could have been better. The story could have been a lot better. I just, I really didn't like the film in terms of the plot. I thought the plot was all right, but how they told it was even worse than the plot itself. And I was like, the redeeming part of the film really was the actors and how much time sort of the company had put in, both Blumhouse and Universal, sort of the time and effort that they've put into this movie, both with sort of when it comes to the writers, the directors, that they were redeeming things, but the factors of it. But the plot itself was all right. The story fell flat. I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest, for those reasons. And I think even the marketing of the film was barely any. I mean, when we first saw our first look at the Wolfman, it was in like some Universal Halloween Horror Nights, and it just looked like a guy with a suit on, and we were getting concerned. It didn't look that bad in the film, but they did turn him into a fully wolf, but at the same time it wasn't the best. And I'm going to be honest, in the Skeleton Crew series in Disney Plus, there's a character with like a wolf head. The way that's, bearing in mind that's just a wolf head, he looked a lot better than this actual werewolf. And it was weird because the sort of the main guy that we followed who turns into a werewolf, and his dad had also become a werewolf and attacked him. They killed his dad and as the werewolf, but it was just weird. It was I just felt it was a weird movie. I didn't like it. It was a lot worse than I expected. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to give it a 4 out of 10. Because I feel I just felt it was a bad movie. It wasn't the worst movie. I have seen worse, admittedly, but not a long shot. I mean, especially looking in the horror franchise, like we've got the Winnie the Pooh. They have a great example. Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. They're not the best films, admittedly, but I personally enjoy them. They haven't got a big company, but I'm a big fan of them. But there is a lot of people out there saying they're such a bad movie. And I felt I enjoyed those movies a lot, and I enjoyed them more than Wolfman. I would watch those two. I watched those movies, both Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey films, the first and the second one. I watch them a lot of the time because I do genuinely enjoy them. But Wolfman I've seen once, and I've been like, that's enough for me. So, for that reason, it's gonna have to be a 4 out of 10 for me. But yeah, in terms of my next video, I will be reviewing the movie Flight Risk. So look forward to that. But an overview of this video is the movie review of Wolfman is I really didn't like it. I think the story fell through and it fell flat. Could have been a lot better. The plot was all right, but again, could have been better. The movie entirely, in my opinion, was a bad movie. There are some worse, but there's a lot films better and series and all that, so I feel for this I have to give it a 4 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.